Krishna Sevaya Bhagavate Uttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Neshtike Om Agyana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Sri Caitanya Manobhistam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sati Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirviseshasha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhaevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So let's continue our reading of Srimad Bhagavatam. We are on Canto 2 and no, I'm sorry, Canto 3. We just started Canto 3 yesterday and we are on the second verse now of the first chapter. So I'll just share the screen. So Yadva ayam mantra kritvo Bhagavan Akhileshwaraha Pauravendra graham hitva praviveshat masat kritam. What else is there to say about the residential house of the Pandavas? Sri Krishna, the Lord of everything, acted as your minister. He used to enter that house as if it were his own, and he did not take any care of Duryodhana's house. So according to the Gaudiya Achintya Beda Beda Tattva philosophy, anything which satisfies the senses of the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna is also Sri Krishna. For example, Sri Vrindavan Dham is non-different from Sri Krishna, Tad Dhama Vrindavanam, because at Vrindavan, the Lord enjoys the transcendental bliss of his internal potency. Similarly, the house of the Pandavas was also the source of transcendental bliss for the Lord. It is mentioned here that the Lord identified the house with his own self. Thus, the house of the Pandavas was as good as Vrindavan, and Vidur should not have given up that place of transcendental bliss. Therefore, the reason for his quitting the house was not exactly family misunderstanding. Rather, Vidur took the opportunity to meet Rishi Maitreya and discuss transcendental knowledge. For a saintly person like Vidur, any disturbance due to worldly affairs is insignificant. Such disturbances, however, are sometimes favorable for higher realization, and therefore Vidur took advantage of a family misunderstanding in order to meet Maitreya. So wherever Krishna is, that is Vrindavan. And then Krishna was always in the house of the Pandavas. So then the rishis are saying, then why did Vidur have to leave his house? So as we said yesterday, because Vidur is a pure devotee of the Lord, he's a Mahajan, he's Yamraj, and he wanted to glorify the Lord. And he wanted to speak about pure devotional service, hear about pure devotional service with Maitreya Rishi. So he took that opportunity to leave the house. As Srila Prabhupada also, when Srila Prabhupada later on in life, there was some misunderstanding with his wife, where he thought that because his Bhagavad Gita went missing, and so there was some misunderstanding, and his wife had somehow gotten into the habit of drinking tea. So it seems that probably she sold the Bhagavad Gita to buy some tea and biscuits. So then Prabhupada asked her, do you want tea or me? So she said, I want tea. So he took that opportunity to leave house and to give us this Krishna consciousness movement, to give us the books, to give us the treasure of Krishna. So great devotees are like that. Family misunderstanding actually doesn't trouble them, but they take every chance to glorify the Lord for the benefit of everyone. Any questions, comments on that? If no, then we'll go to the third verse. Rajo vacha kutra shatur bhagavata maitriya ye nasa sangamaha kadava saha samvad etad varnaya na prabho. The king asked Sukadeva Goswami, where and when did the meeting and discussion take place between Saint Vidur and His Grace Maitreya Muni? Kindly oblige, my lord, and describe this to us. Exactly as Shaunak Rishi inquired of Sutta Goswami, and Sutta Goswami replied, so Srila Sukadeva Goswami replied to King Parikshit's inquiries. The king was very anxious to understand the meaningful discussion that took place between the two great souls. So Parikshit Maharaj wants to hear what Maitreya Muni and Vidur were speaking. He does not want to hear any mundane topic. He wants to hear about the glories of the Lord, about what pure devotees are speaking. So text 4. Nahi alpartha yodayastasya vidurasya malatmanaha tasmin variyasi prashnaha sadhu vadopabrimihitaha. Saint Vidur was a great...
Sorry. So here simultaneously, both of them are asking the same question about Vidurji, right?
Well, because so we said that King Parikshit, he sat down on the Ganges and Sukadev Goswami spoke the Bhagavatam to him. At that time, so many sages were collected to hear the Bhagavatam. So one of the sages over there was Sutta Goswami, who heard the Bhagavatam. And then again, so then at Naimisharanya, where all the sages were collected for the benefit of the people of Kali Yuga, because the new Kali Yuga is starting, and so what to do? So they asked Sutta Goswami, please narrate the Bhagavatam that you heard from Sukadev Goswami.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah?
Okay. Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
No problem. So Saint Vidur was a great and pure devotee of the Lord, and therefore his questions to His Grace Sri Maitreya must have been very purposeful, on the highest level, and approved by learned circles. Questions and answers among different classes of men have different values. Inquiries by mercantile men in a business exchange cannot be expected to be highly purposeful in spiritual values. Question and answers by different classes of men can be guessed by the caliber of the persons concerned. We can see actually whole devi are asking questions and answering them. What shall I eat? Where shall I go? How shall I enjoy? What I have to do? What I don't have to do? Even with our family, with our friends. What did he say? What did she say? You know, we are all having questions and answers. So the devotees also have question and answers, but the nature of the question and answers are different. Their question and answers are always for the benefit of the entire, for all living entities at all times. Like we are hearing now what questions and answers were spoken 5,000 years ago, and they're still relevant to us today. You know, how many of our question and answers that we speak amongst ourselves are relevant to even for tomorrow or day after, you know? So question and answers Okay, yeah. In Bhagavad Gita, the discussion was between Lord Sri Krishna and Arjuna, the Supreme Person and the Supreme Devotee, respectively. The Lord admitted Arjuna to be his devotee and friend. Bhagavad Gita 4.3. And therefore, any sane man can guess that the discussion was on the topic of the Bhakti Yoga system. So there's so many people who comment on Bhagavad Gita without actually knowing what Bhagavad Gita is about. And then they just reduce it to, I don't know if you all have read any other Bhagavad Gita except Bhagavad Gita as it is with the translations and all that. But, you know, I have read one of them and I really couldn't understand what was being said. Whereas Bhagavad Gita, why would Krishna speak of anything else other than Bhakti Yoga? Why would he speak of anything mundane? Actually, the whole Bhagavad Gita is based on the principle of Bhakti Yoga. There is a difference between karma and karma yoga. Karma is regulated action for the enjoyment of the fruit by the performer. But karma yoga is action performed by the devotee for the satisfaction of the Lord. So karma yoga is based on bhakti or pleasing the Lord, whereas karma is based on pleasing the senses of the performer himself. So the devotees, they give the example. Guru Maharaj, Nishinga Maharaj, he was saying this example. Suppose I have the desire to eat a potato, I go to the market, I wash it, cut it, fry it, and I eat it. That is karma. I wanted to eat it, so I did it. And then I feel happy that I have eaten a potato. And I will get some results of it for sure, you know. But karma yoga is, I feel like eating a potato, I go to the market, come back, wash it, cut it, fry it, offer it to Krishna, and then eat it. So that's karma yoga. So I don't get the result because I offered to Krishna. So I will not get any material reaction for it. It becomes spiritual. What result I will get is spiritual bhakti. I will get bhakti. So that's what's the difference. Karma yoga is based on bhakti or pleasing the Lord, whereas karma is based on pleasing the senses of the performer himself. According to Srimad Bhagavatam, one is advised to approach a bona fide spiritual master when one is naturally inclined, when one is actually inclined to question from an elevated level of spiritual understanding. A common man who has no interest in spiritual values has no need to approach a spiritual master, just as a matter of following fashion. So Bhagavatam says, don't get a guru for fashion. When you approach a guru, then we should ask them serious inquiries about who we are, about the self, about who's God. As a student, Maharaj Parikshit was serious about learning the science of God, and Sukadev Goswami was a bona fide spiritual master in the transcendental science. Both of them knew that the topics discussed by Vidur and Rishi Maitreya were elevated, and thus Maharaj Parikshit was very interested in learning from the bona fide spiritual master. So like this, we can put inquiries to a bona fide spiritual master, ask them, oh, what this great devotee spoke, what was the reason, what is the understanding, how shall we understand it? That is the topics to be spoken of, which are actually value to ourselves and everyone. And we see that spiritual topics are not, it's not like a private affair or it's a secret. Bhagavad Gita is spoken on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Millions of people were assembled there, you know. Even the demigods and so many people were hearing the transcendental knowledge of Bhagavad Gita. Same, when Sukadev Goswami spoke Bhagavatam to Parikshit Maharaj, so many sages and so many personalities we heard in the beginning, that different, even Manus were there, and different places, different personalities from different parts of the universe came to hear the Bhagavatam. And then when Sutta Goswami is also speaking to the sages of Naimisharanya, there's so many thousands of sages. So spiritual matter is not that, oh, it's supposed to be a secret. No, it's for the benefit of everyone. So text 5, Sutta Vacha Sa Evam Rishi Varyo Yam Prishto Rajna Parikshita Pratyaha Tam Subhahu Vet Pritatma Suryatam iti. Sri Sutta Goswami said, the great sage Sukadev Goswami was highly experienced and was pleased with the king. Thus being questioned by the king, he said to him, please hear the topics attentively. So the spiritual master is also pleased when we put relevant questions to them. When we are asking about great devotees, when we are asking about devotional service, the spiritual master is pleased. And then he's saying, hear attentively. We should give attention when they are speaking then. And I'm sorry, I don't know why this green line has appeared. I'm not sure what it is. And I don't know how to take it away. Anyway. So text 6. Shri Shuka Vacha Yadato Raja Swasutan Asadhan Pushnana Dharmena Vinashta Drishtihi Bhratur Yavishthasya Sutan Bandha Vibhandhun Praveshya Laksha Bhavane Dadaha. Shri Sukadev Goswami said, King Dhritarashtra became blind under the influence of impious desires to nourish his dishonest sons, and thus he set fire to the lacquer house to burn his fatherless nephews, the Pandavas. Dhritarashtra was blind from birth, but his blindness in committing impious activities to support his dishonest sons was a greater blindness than his physical lack of eyesight. The physical lack of sight does not bar one from spiritual progress. But when one is blind spiritually, even though physically fit, that blindness is dangerously detrimental to the progressive path of human life. So Dhritarashtra was blind not only physically, but spiritually as well. And here Prabhupada is saying that even if someone is blind, it does not mean that they cannot engage in devotional service, that they cannot do bhakti. No, there is no restriction to bhakti. Each of us is qualified. So, reading on text 7. Yada sabhayam kuru deva devayaha she abhi marsham sutta karma gharyam na varyam asha nripa shaya shnushaya swashrer harantaya kucha kumkumani. The king did not forbid his son Dushasan's abominable action of grabbing the hair of Draupadi, the wife of the godly king Yudhishthir, even though her tears washed the red dust on her breast. So the Dhritarashtra, he didn't even stop at the assembly house, the disrespect that was being committed to Draupadi. Text 8. Dyutetva adharmena jitasya sadhoho satyavalambasya vanam gatasya na yachato adat samyena dayam tamo jusano yad ajata shatruho. Yudhishthir, who was born without any enemy, was unfairly defeated in gambling. But because he had taken the vow of truthfulness, he went off to the forest. When he came back in due course and begged the return of his rightful share of the kingdom, he was refused by Dhritarashtra, who was overwhelmed by illusion. Maharaj Yudhishthir was the rightful heir to his father's kingdom, but just to favor his own sons, headed by Duryodhana, Dhritarashtra, Maharaj Yudhishthir's uncle, adopted various unfair means to cheat his nephews of their rightful share of the kingdom. At last, the Pandavas demanded only 5 villages, one for each of the 5 brothers, but that was also refused by the usurpers. This incident led to the war of Kurukshetra. The battle of Kurukshetra, therefore, was induced by the Kurus and not the Pandavas. As Kshatriyas, the proper livelihood of the Pandavas was only to rule and not to accept any other occupation. A Brahmana, Kshatriya, or Vaishya will not accept employment for his livelihood under any circumstances. So this is a time where the Vedic system was prevalent, where Varna Sharma was prevalent. So because the Pandavas were Kshatriyas, they said, okay, just give us 5 villages. Even though you have you have, unrightfully taken our kingdom. You just give us 5 villages to rule. But that also they were not given. So that's why the war happened. Text 9. Yadacha partha prahitah sabhayam jagad gururyani jagada krishnaha natani pumsam amritaya nani rajorumene shata punyaleshaha. Lord Krishna was sent by Arjuna into the assembly as the spiritual master of the whole world. And although his words were heard by some, like Bhishma, as pure nectar, it was not so for the others, who were completely bereft of the last farthing of past pious works. The king, Dhritarashtra or Duryodhana, did not take the words of Lord Krishna very seriously. Lord Krishna was the spiritual master of the entire universe, accepted the duty of a messenger, and deputed by Arjuna, was sent to the assembly of Dhritarashtra on a peace mission. Krishna is everyone's Lord, yet because he was the transcendental friend of Arjuna, he gladly accepted the role of messenger, exactly like an ordinary friend. That is the beauty of the Lord's behavior with his pure devotees. So here we see that Krishna actually becomes the servant of his servant. Because Arjuna is a pure devotee, Krishna becomes his messenger, Krishna becomes his driver. So this is how loving Krishna is. He's not that some almighty just sitting on the throne and saying, no, I'm going to whip you and lash you and you work for me and I'm going to exploit you. No, he's so loving. He loves to serve the devotees. He reached the assembly and spoke about peace, and the message was relished by Bhishma and other great leaders because it was spoken by the Lord himself. But due to the exhaustion of the pious results of their past deeds, Duryodhana or his father Dhritarashtra could not take the message very seriously. That is the way of persons who have no credit of pious deeds. By past pious deeds, one may become the king of a country, but because the results of the pious acts of Duryodhana and company were dwindling, it became evident from their actions that they were sure to lose the kingdom of the Pandavas. The message of Godhead is always like nectar to the devotees, but it is just the opposite to the non-devotees. Sugar candy is always sweet to a healthy man, but it tastes very bitter to persons suffering from jaundice. So if somebody has jaundice and if you give them sugarcane juice, they will say you're giving me poison because of their disease. But actually sugarcane is so sweet. So because we have so many material attachments, we don't like to hear Krishna Katha. But the more we hear Krishna Katha, the more our disease of material attachment will go away and we'll be situated in our true position as being the eternal parts and parcels of Krishna. Any questions, comments? No? Then we can.
No,
okay, so we can.
No, all clear.
Okay. Text 10. Yadopahuto bhavanam pravishto mantraya prishta kila purvajena athaha tan mantra drisham variyan yan mantrino vedurikam vadanti. When Vidur was invited by his elder brother Dhritarashtra for consultation, he entered the house and gave instructions which were exactly to the point. His advice is well known, and instructions by Vidur are approved by expert ministers of state. Political suggestions by Vidur are known as expert, just as in modern times, Pandit Chanakya is considered the authority in good counsel in both political and moral instructions. So Chanakya Pandit, he's mentioned by Sukadev Goswami also in the 12th canto that, in future, who's going to be coming. And so Chanakya Pandit was known for his very good instructions, political and moral, and he was quoted many times by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada quotes Chanakya Pandit many times, and Vidur was also always known for giving proper guidance, politically and even morally. Text 11. Ajata shatro pratiyachadayam titikshato durvishaham tavagaha sahanu jo yatra vikoda rahi swa sanrusha yatvam alam bibheshi. Vidur said, you must now return the legitimate share to Yudhishthir, who has no enemies and who has been forbearing through untold sufferings due to your offenses. He is waiting with his younger brothers, among whom is the revengeful Bhima, breathing heavily like a snake. Surely you are afraid of him. So Vidur is telling that you have cheated Yudhishthir and his brothers. You know, Yudhishthir has no enemies, but you're purposely making him your enemy. You know, there's Bhima is there and he's really angry and he's really strong. So you better give, otherwise something bad is going to happen, you know, to you itself. It's not going to be good for you. So Vidur is very honestly telling Dhritarashtra what to do. Dhritarashtra called him and he's asking him for advice. So Vidur is giving him, but yet Dhritarashtra didn't want to listen to the advice. Parthamstu devo bhagavan mukundo grihitavan sakshiti deva devaha aste swapuryam yadu deva devo vinirjita sha nirdeva devaha. Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead, has accepted the sons of Pritha as his kinsmen, and all the kings of the world are with Lord Sri Krishna. He is present in his home with all his family members, the kings and princes of the Yadu dynasty, who have conquered an unlimited number of rulers, and he is their Lord. Vidur gave Dhritarashtra very good counsel regarding political alliance with the sons of Pritha, the Pandavas. The first thing he said was that Lord Krishna was intimately related with them as their cousin. Because Lord Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead, he is worshipable by all Brahmanas and demigods, who are the controllers of the universal affairs. Besides that, Lord Krishna and his family members, the royal order of the Yadu dynasty, were the conquerors of all kings of the world. So Vidur is telling Dhritarashtra that Sri Krishna, who is the Lord himself, he is favoring the Pandavas. Now, if you take enmity with the Pandavas, what's going to happen to you when the Supreme Lord himself is protecting them? All the Brahmanas, all the demigods, all the people who are in power are protecting the Pandavas. If you take up enmity with them, for sure your future is not good. The Kshatriyas used to fight the kings for various dominions and kidnap their beautiful princess daughters after conquering their relatives. This system was laudable because the Kshatriyas and the princesses would be married only on the basis of the chivalry of the conquering Kshatriya. All the young princes of the Yadu dynasty married the daughters of other kings in this way by chivalrous force, and thus they were conquerors of all the kings of the world. Vidur wanted to impress upon his elder brother that fighting with the Pandavas was fraught with many dangers because they were supported by Lord Krishna, who had conquered even in his childhood demons like Kamsa and Jarasandha and demigods like Brahma and Indra. Therefore, all universal power was behind the Pandavas. So Vidur is really trying to give proper guidance to Dhritarashtra, but he really didn't want to listen. So we can stop here for today.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Shilpa Shyam.
Hare Krishna.